trying to use like my rear camera to see if the thing is better, although it doesn't really matter. I'm getting a new phone next week anyway, so I have to like walk all around, but it is what it is. So today we are going to talk about the books I read in May. Can you believe it? May is like ended. Like that's pretty amazing. So I read 11 books this month, which really surprised me. For some odd reason, I spent all month thinking I've only read like 3 or 4 books. I think it's because it took me so long to get through The Grapes of Wrath at the beginning of the month, so excuse me. I think that's part of the reason why. But without further ado, let's talk books. So let's start off with the physical books that I read this month. First, we're gonna go with The Grapes of Wrath. I'm not gonna go too far into this and my feelings on it, but I will let you know that I did give it 4.5 stars. If you want to know more about my opinions, you can watch my rereading books I hated in school reading vlog, which I'll put on the iCard, and let's just say I was surprised I liked it. Next we have Jane Harper's The Dry. I gave this book 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was good. It was slow. I didn't guess who it was until the narrator Aaron Falk caught up with it. I guess the plot of this book is that he used to live in this small Australian town. He left because he was being basically considered the main suspect of another murder of his friend. So he left. He hadn't been back in 20 years. His other friend is killed very gruesomely. Like, his wife was killed, his young son was killed, and the dad was killed. All by guns. It was very gruesome, very bloody. And so they don't know if it's a suicide or if it was a murder, or if it's tied to the death of the friend from 20 years ago. And so there was a lot of history and a lot of world building, and it was good. I liked it. I mean, 3.75 is solid for a mystery novel for me. It takes a lot for a mystery novel to get 4 or 5 stars for me. So 3.75 for a mystery novel is basically a 5. The next physical book I read, which was one of the last library books I picked up before all the libraries closed. They're open now, which is super exciting, but in a very minimal capacity. So it's a little slow. So I mean, I'm thankful. I'm not complaining. It's just we'll get there eventually, and I'd rather the librarians do it safely instead of just open up for everybody just because I want them to be open. I'm not a butthead. The next book is Walter Moers, I don't know, he's German. This is actually a translation from a German book. The City of Dreaming Books. I didn't know what to expect from this book. I knew it was about a dinosaur who travels to this place called, and I forgot what it's called, Bookholm, which is also called the City of Dreaming Books, to find the author of this manuscript that he was given to by his authorial grandfather. And it's supposed to be the best thing ever written, and everybody is just saying how much they love it. And so he wants to find out who's written, and he goes on this whole adventure, and it's kind of a quest, I don't know. If you love books and you love books, I would suggest reading this. It's kind of similar to The Endless Sea, and there's another one. Oh, it's about Hell's Library. I can't think of what it's called. And where unwritten manuscripts go. I have to look that up because I don't remember the title. I read it last year. And I just have to say that I really want a pet bookling. I think it should memorize all of J.K. Rowling's works, and he could just cite me Harry Potter whenever I wanted it, and that would be amazing. The next physical book I read, I actually loaned to someone because they needed books. That's The Woman Who Ruined My Life by Marian Keyes. I gave this also a 3.75. This one was kind of a romance novel, chick lit. It was an average romance novel chick lit. From what I read from the back and what I got were two different things, but it worked out okay. I was thinking it was more of like this woman who was trying to claim her life from another woman who like stole her story. But it was a completely different story, and it was fine. It was, I don't know. It was, like I said, it was average. It was good. It was, yeah, that's how I feel about it. Next, we're going to focus on the 2 audiobooks that I listened to this month. The first one is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's a YA, maybe middle grade. I'm not quite sure the difference. Sort of this, I don't know, it's really hard to explain without giving away the plot. Like, basically, our main character named Morgan Crow has a special ability. She's a wondersmith. And we find out that wondersmiths are bad, and so it's kind of her treatment, and then something is happening in the city, and we're trying to figure out who it is, and I will say that I was very annoyed who it ended up being. To say any more would be spoilers. If you've read it, you understand. Like, can she just find someone who cares, who isn't gonna be... Ugh, never mind, that's a spoiler. Like, some of these books are hard to talk about without spoilers. The next book I listened to was The Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. I picked up this book mostly just because I needed a audiobook. The audiobook I was waiting for wasn't in yet. I just needed something to listen to while I was doing dishes and folding laundry and stuff, so I was just like, fine, this looks good. It's about a young woman named Harper who is born without arms, and she befriends a boy who stutters, whose name is not coming to me. I want to say it's Ethan, but I don't think that's right. And so her and Ethan discover this sort of mystery, and so we're trying to figure it out, and there's a lot of talking about like accepting yourself, no matter what you may perceive your flaws are, may it be, you know, a physical disability, like you don't have arms, or, you know, you stutter, or you have Tourette's syndrome. Did I say if the person stutters or has Tourette's syndrome? The person has Tourette's syndrome, doesn't stutter. Sorry, I was getting confused with something else. I read this whole article about stuttering the other night, and I think if I mentioned that, I'm sorry, I meant Tourette's syndrome. The boy has Tourette's syndrome. And so there's a lot of like good, like interesting information about Tourette's, and a lot of just, it ended up being good. Overall, I gave it a 3.75. Although thinking about it, that might be a little heavy. I think the message helped weigh it, but just the mystery at the end fell a little flat. Like, I figured it out almost like instantly, like what the end was going to be. And I mean, I understand it is a middle grade YA junior book, so it's not meant to be like heavily convoluted in the mystery, but I figured it out very quickly, and I feel like it was a little bit heavy-handed that even like someone younger than me could probably have figured it out pretty quickly as well. So now we're going to do the ebooks I read. The first one was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This was part of my one graphic novel a month series thing that I'm doing. I gave it 5 stars, and if I could have, I would have given it like 1,000 stars. It was adorable. The artwork was gorgeous. I liked the whole story. It's about a prince who likes to dress in women's clothing, and he hires this seamstress who kind of makes these just gorgeous gowns for him, and he just kind of goes out with his persona. And it was such a sweet book. Like, it really, really was. I would suggest probably like 10 or older read it. I mean, it's one of those things where, know your child. I'm not going to say you shouldn't read it to a younger child, because it's got a good message. It's got a good overall, and just when the king came out with his, guards and stuff like that, and in the end, I cried. Like, I'd finished one book, one of my ebooks, and I was just like, well, I'm not quite ready to go to bed. I'm going to start this book. I ended up staying up way too late past my bedtime to finish it. And then I'm just sitting there, my husband snoring next to me, just bawling happy tears. It was just such a good book. I would suggest it. And the artwork is brilliant. It's really, Jen Wan is also the artist for it, and I would like to find more for art because I really thought it was great. God, I'm crying just thinking about the book. It was so good. And then the next ebook I read was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I know that I will have a hard time talking about this book, especially with current events as they are. I would suggest reading it if you want a little more understanding. It wasn't exactly what I expected. It sort of took the genre that I was aware of and kind of turned it just a little bit, but not, I don't know. Like, I think as a white woman, it's hard for me to discuss it because I haven't been in that situation. But it was, it's definitely a good book to read, and I would suggest it. If you want a little kind of a fictional sort of account that could have spiraled into something that was much worse than the actual events of the book. It's kind of like The Hate You Give, and but there's no death, which is another good book you should also read. So the next thing I read was H.G. Wells's The Time Machine. Like many of us right now, we have seen everything and anything that is on a streaming service, and we were just looking for a movie, and my husband saw that the 2002 movie of The Time Machine with Guy, I don't remember his name. I think his first name is Guy. Was there, and he had said he'd seen it. I remember thinking it was good, so I was like, yeah, fine, whatever, just put it on. And then the Time Machine that I was aware of was the Wishbone version. I was a huge fan of Wishbone growing up. I would love to see if I could find the Wishbone episodes, because I'd love to. I think a cool series would be just is to like watch the Wishbone episode of a book and then read the book and then like discuss how it differs. But I guess I could do that here. I mean, I haven't seen the Wishbone one in probably, I don't know, 20 years, but I just remember the Morlocks being absolutely terrifying to the point where, like, even nowadays I will have nightmares about them. And so, and I knew the plot from there, and so the movie was very different, and the book was very different from both the Wishbone and the movie. So it's kind of interesting to kind of look how they have adapted it for different audiences. Of course, the 2002 was kind of more modern, then I think it was 1986, I think. I don't know. I'll put the publication date down there. So it was interesting. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was fine. I have no real opinion on it other than it was a short read and I thought it was interesting. Next I read Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Reedy or Reed. Sorry. This was a reread for me actually. I reread these books probably in 7th or 8th grade, so that would have been close to 20 years ago, or maybe a little over 20 years ago at this point. And I fell in love with it. It was just one of those books where it was like Harry Potter. I just picked up, read it. Ended up binging the whole series. It's about a princess named Cimarron who just doesn't really want to do all the princessy things. She doesn't want to embroidery. She doesn't want to be, pursued by a prince and quickly marry. And so she kind of just wanders off and decides to volunteer to work with the dragons. The dragons all have their princesses who, do the cooking and cleaning and mending and whatnot. And so it's got a very good, girl power message. It's got a, stand up for yourself. You don't need a man to be solid, like what you like. And just, growing up with something it was good to read. And so I was reminded of them recently and I just wanted to reread them. And they have, at least the first one has stood up to its time. And so I definitely suggest it. Like, you have young girls, probably around the age 10, a little younger, a little older, I don't know, I would read the whole series. I think I'm not sure how many books there are, 5 maybe? 4? I don't remember, I'll have to look that up, but I would definitely suggest the series, especially if they're into princesses, but are a little bit more independent, I guess? I don't know. The last book I read, ebook I read according to this list, was Brandon Sanderson's Starsight, which was number 2 in this Skyward series, and I will forever be emotionally wrecked. And I'm sad that I have to wait like a year for the next one. It follows a young woman named Spencer who... Is it Spencer? Yeah, Spencer. That is in this fighting force, and they fight in space because Earth had been destroyed, and so they jettisoned off to this planet they called Diatris, or wherever that word is said. And and they're being attacked by aliens, and there's whole political intrigue, and there's a lot of where a lot of things come from a misunderstanding. Like, we may see a group do one thing and we just assume that is the whole group. And so there's kind of this whole political intrigue, and I get some more of my M-bot, and I will, like I said, be forever distraught. I was nearing the end. I probably had about 50 pages left, and we needed to take the trash out. So my husband came into the bedroom where I was reading, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to take the trash out?" And I just kind of I had just learned something. I set my book down. I was like, "Can we make this quick? I'm currently emotionally distraught over a spaceship." And I'm still emotionally distraught over a spaceship. And I will be emotionally distraught over a spaceship until Brandon Sanderson publishes number 3. Sorry. A lot of times I try not to start a series until they're 3 or 4 books in. But I just really wanted to read this series, so I started it, and now I have to wait. I think it's 2021, I think, which, I mean, this year is almost over, so I don't have to wait that long, but it's still a long time. So yeah, those are the 11 books I read this month. So I am probably going to take a week off before I record my next video, which I think will probably be another sketchbook flip through. And I'm nearing the end of another sketchbook flip through. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to need a new phone, and I'm going to wait till I get my new phone. So we'll kind of probably be end of the first week of June when I post my next video. I don't know what's going to be. I'm not doing a TBR this year or this month, I guess. So if you want one, that's cool. If not, stay safe, wash your hands, and ride a bike.